What's up everyone and welcome to another Warframe video. So today update 35.5 dropped and with it came a new Warframe which is Dante. Normally it takes me a few days to really settle on a build for a frame, however this one I landed on almost immediately and boy does it absolutely nuke. Dante can be acquired by playing the new Disruption game mode on Demos, which is Armatus. The blueprints drop from Rotation C, however there is some bad luck protection in place which you can get capillaries from playing, and they can be turned in at Lloyd for blueprint pieces. So with Dante acquired, what are his abilities? Let's start with his passive. Any kills with Noctua, his first ability will scan enemies into your codex, which is actually pretty nice for those that haven't actually completed yet, me included. Not just that, but any fully scanned enemy, Noctua will have an additional 50% status chance on, which is a nice, very nice little bonus to be honest. So taking a look at his abilities, his first ability is the aforementioned Noctua, which is his Exalted Tome. This thing has the advantage of being able to equip as many of the tome mods as it wants, although admittedly this does come with the rather significant drawback of having no Exla slot, so you have to use regular mod slots for any tome mods you want to equip. It's got good crit and status and honestly should be modded to take advantage of that. I went for a pure slash build with Zata Invocation for the energy recovery to help sustain my main build. It's not a terrible weapon, however I'll be honest, it's the sacrificial power on this build. You can get a lot of mileage out of a few helmet abilities on this frame, and as such unfortunately this weapon will be very unlikely to last very long for most players. Second ability is Light Verse. Casting this makes you temporarily invincible and gives you and your allies within range Overguard. It also gives you a health bump and boosts the Overguard cap, which is going to become relevant later when we take a look at the 4. Third ability is Dark Verse. Casting this will cause Dante to ride across in the air, hitting any enemies within a 50-degree cone with 2 hits, dealing slash damage with a 100% chance to pop slash on both hits. It's a very simple ability in theory, a little bit like Light Verse, however like Light Verse it becomes a lot more relevant when looking at the 4 again. This is also the ability you can actually helmet onto other frames. And so the final ability, Final Verse, and honestly I don't think I've known a more complex ability in the game quite frankly. It has 4 different parts to it. To be able to cast the 4 you need to cast Light or Dark Verse twice in any order. So light, light, dark, 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 light, and light, dark. Each of these casts does different things. Light then light, which is known as Triumph, is Dante's survivability. Upon casting Final Verse after doing the double Light Verse, you will get a huge chunk of Overguard and a couple of seconds of Overguard regeneration, which allows weapons and abilities to further boost that number. If you check the footage, you can get tens of thousands of Overguard, and you can keep casting this to hit your Overguard cap, which is what I mentioned being increased as part of casting Light Verse to begin with. The amazing thing about this is that it's also transferred to your allies within range, which also means your pets. So you can have near invincible pets and sentinels while you're playing Dante if you're paying attention to your hit points. It's also super hard to die when using that combination of Light Verse and Final Verse. I've left some footage in here where, honestly, I should have died multiple times, but well used Light Verses saved me massively. It is a very, very strong, very, very lenient combo. Dark then Dark, also known as Tragedy, is, well, it's Dante's nuke, quite frankly. Cast Dark Verse twice and then Final Verse, and it will take any damage over time that the enemies hit by Dark Verse have suffered, and will inflict that on every enemy in your range. If you build around this, you can turn Dante into an absolute powerhouse, and while the other abilities are good and will be used, this is absolutely the build that caught my eye and will be playing around with, and we will delve into with this build. Light then Dark is Word Warden. This summons a Noctua that sort of floats beside you and will deal damage to enemies that you shoot, inflicting additional damage and status. Not really a lot to talk about with this one, but it is actually very, very useful. It's a fire and forget sort of ability. Then finally, Dark then Light is Page Flight. This will summon 3 burbs which will fly around attacking enemies in range, inflicting slash status procs, making them more vulnerable to status procs, and also drawing fire away from Dante. Again, quite like Word Warden, it is a fire and forget sort of ability, but like Word Warden is also worth making sure to keep this up. And that's Dante's abilities. They aren't honestly overly complicated, however, there is a lot of them. So how are we going to build him to take advantage of this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to helmet off the book. I'm sorry DE, but the other three are just too important to lose. And Raw, our choice of helmet, really does enable this build to be a little bit silly. Then we're going to build for power strength, efficiency, and a bit of range. The only abilities affected by duration are Raw and the Word Warden and Page Flight. All of these have pretty juicy base durations anyway, so it's actually fine to lose a little bit of duration there. So in terms of the mods we're going to go with, Transient Fortitude, Augur Secrets, Umbral Intensify, Growing Power, and Molt Augmented Force Strength, as well as 3 red shards, Tau or otherwise, boosting strength, Fleecing and Streamline for efficiency, Stretch for range, Equilibrium is going to work with our companion, which is going to be the Panzer Cat, which is going to be using the Synth Deconstruct and Viral Krill's Health Orb loop to help feed our energy. Then Primed Continuity and Molt Efficiency to boost our duration back up again. Molt Efficiency is a very niche augment, but works amazingly here because our shields are always full due to the Overguard. Then the other 2 shards on the frame are going to be yellow for cast speed. So with the build, what's the actual gameplay loop? Well, it's one of the heaviest caster builds out there. You've got to keep Raw, Word Warden and Page Flight up as often as you can. Raw needs to be up at all times. Then you're casting Triumph as often as you need to try and keep yourself and your companion alive. When you're not doing any of those things, spread status effects around with your status weapon of choice. I'm using a status build Vermislicer, but Ocucore, Tennis, Cycron, Kuvanucore, that sort of thing can also work. Then cast your Tragedy twice, keep shooting those targets hit by those 2 casts, using your status weapon, and then cast Final Page and the entire world dies. It's an incredibly satisfying and very strong gameplay loop. So what do I think of Dante? Well, honestly, he is one of the most fun frames we've had in a very long time. We've had some really good ones lately, but I don't think I've enjoyed any of them quite as much as I have him. The gameplay loop not only is very active, it throws a million numbers up literally everywhere on the screen, so it's amazingly satisfying. Watching all those numbers, watching groups of enemies disappear from your minimap. The time I spent testing and recording absolutely flew by, and I had to force myself to stop and record this video. It's a bit of a shame that the Exalted Tome was the sacrificial lamb here, but Raw just enables the absolute bonkers amount of damage, because we're at least triple, potentially quad dipping into damage, something we've always known was super strong with slash procs, and this just takes that and absolutely dials it to 11. I landed on a build for this super quickly. Normally it takes time to refine a build, but this came together just so easily and so naturally that the results honestly speak for themselves. There's actually more potential from this build too. There's a potential for the team play for the nuke if other people's status damage also counts towards your nukes. This could really allow other people to essentially charge your final word alongside your own tragedies. I've not really been able to test this yet. If this does bear fruit, I will come back with another video dealing with that. However, I think it's time to end this one off. Honestly, I just want to go back and play. I want to nuke some more with Dante. So much fun and well worth investing some Tau shards into, especially with the new and improved Netrocell drop tables, and the new game mode, which unfortunately was delayed until next week. But honestly, I'm okay with that. A little bit extra time, hopefully it comes out of the oven a lot more refined, and that is obviously what they want. But for now, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I shall catch you in the next video.